Thank you. You can take our seats. We apologize for the late start. We were waiting for the Rules Committee to conclude its business first. Since this morning's business is about rules, and we needed the committee to be present. Mr. Clark, you can read the business of today.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, honorable members. We only have one item in the agenda this morning. This is the presentation and debate on the amendments of the PAP Rules of Procedure.
Thank you. Before I call upon the chair of the Rules Committee to present, I think it may be important, Mr. Clark, our Vice President, to count how many MPs we have in the chamber. Thank you. I was consulting with the acting clerk, and the view is that we invite, whilst they work on numbers, we invite the chair of rules to present his report.
The President of the Pan-African Parliament, Honorable Chief Sarambira, the 4 Vice Presidents of the Pan-African Parliament, Chairpersons of the caucus and the committees of PAP, all PAP members, representatives of the AUC here present, PAP Secretariat, the Committee of Rules, Privilege and Discipline has held several meetings and workshops to amend the rules of procedure. These meetings involve consultations with PAP Secretariat, the African Union Legal Council, legal experts, the Bureau of the PAP, and the regional caucuses of the PAP. Through the issue of amendment, the PAP Rules of Procedure is not a matter that gained a transition in recent years. The committee started the process in October 2018, a workshop that was held at the PAP to evaluate the rules and to assess if there are the gaps on the rules. At the conclusion of the workshop, the committee discovered that PAP Rules of Procedure required amendments. There were numerous draft deficiencies that were discovered in the current PAP Rules of Procedure. In April 2021, the committee adopted a roadmap through which the committee would approach the process of amending the rules. The consultation with all relevant stakeholders in and out PAP, as well as presenting the final amendments to PAP plenary for debate and adoption. In the last 2 months, the PAP committee held a workshop, the Rules Committee, we had a workshop in Johannesburg from the 5th to the 8th of September 2022, and a pre-session meeting from the 17th to the 21st October 2022. Out of the specific rules that required amendment and suggested possible remedies, this culminated in a report of the workshop and a discussion paper on the gaps and the proposed amendments of the rules of procedure. The documents were shared with the PAP Bureau and the regional caucuses of PAP. The 5 regional caucuses of PAP met on the 24th of October 2022 to consider a report from the Rules Committee. The objectives of the meeting was for the caucus to make an input in the recommendations of the Rules Committee and identify other rules and that need amendments. Each caucus made its observations and proposals, which were further discussed in a plenary meeting of all caucuses and further referred to a meeting of all regional caucuses chairpersons for discussion and consensus building. On the 1st of November 2022, the caucuses submitted a consolidated report to the Rules Committee representing the deliberations from the caucuses. The report captured areas of agreement and disagreement. The committee discussed the report and noted that the regional caucuses agreed most of the amendments that were tabled in different regional caucuses. Following these meetings, the chairperson of the regional caucuses and the Bureau, together with the chairperson of the Rules Committee, reached a consensus on most of the issues. Areas of agreement and disagreement. A total of 94 rules of procedure were considered by the regional caucuses. From the analysis, there was a consensus between all regional caucuses. 97 of the 94 rules of procedure, there was an agreement on this. But today we are talking about the 99.9% whereby the agreement, the caucuses agreed on. There were minor differences on 7 rules of procedure, translating to 7.4%. There were 9 material differences, which translates to 9.5. Regional caucuses met again last night with the Bureau and the chairpersons of the rules and agreed to 99.19%. Now I'm coming to the rules that we discussed. Rule number 7, that was one of the rules. The status, the tenure, and the mandate of the members. The general principle adopted by all regional caucuses was that an amendment should be introduced to reflect the position that a member shall remain competent to perform his or her functions you disturb me. The member should be competent to perform his or her functions if he or she is re-elected or redesignated to a Pan-African Parliament by his or her national parliament or other deliberative organs. Declaration of vacancy shall be held in abeyance until confirmed that a member was not re-designated or re-elected by a national parliament or other deliberative bodies. In the recommendation made by the Committee on Rules, Privileges, and Discipline, and the regional caucuses, this principle was reflected under Rule 7. Upon reflections, it was agreed that Rule 7 would not be appropriate rule on reflect this principle. The principles were then placed under Rule 8 and 16 to ensure conformity with the sequence of the provisions of the protocol. To accommodate this concern of members for administration of oath, it was proposed that word plenary, as captured in Rule 7.2, be amended to reflect sitting of Parliament, which, as defined in the Rules of Procedure, encompasses the committee sitting and the plenary. This will also allow verifications of the rules of committee. Rule 16, election of members of the Bureau. Initially, there was a disagreement on the tenure of the members of the Bureau, with the Central and the West caucuses proposed that the term should be 2.5 years and renewable once, and the West African proposed the tenure to be 2 years and non-renewable. After consultation, it was agreed that the current term of 3 years should be maintained, consistent with the current rule of procedure. Furthermore, 3 additional amendments were proposed to the Rules 16. This provides that 14, without prejudice of the Rules 8 and 8.6 and the sub-rule 15 below, in the event of the vacancy in the Bureau arising from elections in a member state of that member. The position shall be filled temporarily by the chairperson of the members' regional caucus until electoral processes in the member state is concluded. 15A. 15, a member of the Bureau shall remain competent to perform his or her function if he or she is re-elected or re-designated by his or her national parliament or other deliberative organs. 16, in the event that the member under the sub-rule 15 is not re-elected or re-designated by his or her national parliament or other deliberative organs, the position shall be filled from the members' regional caucus at a sitting of the Pan-African Parliament immediately following its occurrence and accordance with the provision of the principle of rotation. In conclusion, honorable members, the Rules Committee is pleased to report that most of the areas of disagreement have now been resolved. We'd like to thank the Bureau of the PAP, led by Honorable Chief Sarambira, all members of the Committee of the Rules, Privileges and Discipline, the Secretariat, the chairpersons of the various caucuses. You made me very proud. I've indicated today in the Rules Committee that you play a very, very, very vital role in this amendment of rules. And also, I want to thank all members, because our task as a Rules Committee was to highlight the gaps in the rules. The people who have full authority and mandate to review the rules, it's the honorable members who are sitting here. That's why that we took the process to your regional chairpersons, so that you can have a full participation in this whole process of reviewing the rules. And that is what we have done. Thank you so much. And I highly appreciated your contribution towards this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think another round of applause for the good work. Honorable members, we now enter into submissions or debate by members or comments. And there's a list. Sorry, Honorable Mutaka.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, permit me to make a suggestion. Because the rules were subjected in our various caucuses, and we had the opportunity to make our inputs, which the chair of the rules has indicated, those that have been accepted and those that have not been accepted. If we make an attempt and open it to open comment, we may spend the whole day going front and back. I want to make a suggestion further, that we have the regional caucus leaders that have led us through this. If we can hear them, the five, confirming what the rules chair has said are the agreed points, so that we can only be talking about where there is no complete agreement. In that way, we'll be narrowing the discussion to where there's disagreement and possibly see the argument others will bring on board. And if we open the whole rules to now discussion, we may be going front and back, and we may never be able to have a head or tail. So my suggestion is that if the House agrees, let's hear the 5 regional leaders. If we agree, then we'll concentrate. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
I think by acclamation, that view is upheld. So we'll start with regional caucus chairpersons to confirm or otherwise what the chair of rules has said. Now, I would rather say volunteer, you would rather say, I'll start with this one. But if there are no volunteers, of course, I'll point. So I'll just say among yourselves, the volunteer first. Thank you, Honorable Majola. And before you take the floor, and in accordance with yesterday's debate in this chamber, and by the issue raised by Honorable Muntaka yesterday, I like, this is the dressing for PAP. Look at the dressing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for that appreciation. Thank you very much, the Vice President, honorable members of this august House, my regional chairpersons. Honorable President, as the Southern Africa, we rise here with our shoulders very high in appreciating the breakthrough of the peace talks in Ethiopia that was signed yesterday. The Southern Regional Caucus welcomes and accepts process that we have collectively undertaken as this august House to amend our rules of procedures. It was during our committee sitting in August this year, 2022, when we did our self-introspection and came to the conclusion that Pan-African Parliament was still far from where it is supposed to be compared to other continental parliaments. In fact, we are even lagging behind other regional parliaments in our continent, such as ECOWAS and the East Africa Legislative Assembly, ELA. This was an anomaly situation, as it should be the other way around. The Pan-African Parliament, as a continental parliament and the legislative organ of the African Union, should be a source of knowledge and a fountain from which the regional parliament bodies are drinking. In fact, these regional parliament bodies and national parliaments should undertake study tour to come to learn some good practices from this organ of the African Union. Unfortunately, despite 18 years of existence as PAP, we are not as yet at the level where we inspire confidence to other continental bodies to learn from us. To put it bluntly, Honorable President, we have been regressing for years. We must seize these good, glorious opportunities to go back to where we belong. Let us take our rightful place to avoid being harshly judged by history. It is on this basis of this self-introspection, honestly and in-depth analysis, that during our committee sittings in August this year, we held a strategic reorientation workshop for members of Pan-African Parliament under your theme, reviving, renewing, repositioning, reinvigorating the Pan-African Parliament. It is during this workshop that we unanimously identified the amendment of our rules of procedure as a key priority area that we must undertake in our quest to revive, to renew, renew, to reposition, to refocus PAP. On this basis, consensus have been reached by us as regional chairperson, and we are quite aware that it is not about us, but we want to leave a very positive legacy for those who are going to succeed us in this PAP. It is our time to ensure that we swallow our pride and put Africa as a continent in the priority. As the regional caucuses chairpersons, we have been given a fair opportunity since our arrival in this session to meet with members of our caucuses to discuss, make inputs. We've reached consensus because it was good for us to do that. We had to be politically matured and be politically tolerant for one another and be acceptive of one another. As I conclude, Chair, in the basis of the above, the Southern Regional Caucus, we support the proposed amendment of PAP Rules Procedures because we were consulted. We were given opportunity to make our inputs. We believe the process was fair, transparent, and extremely consultative. In conclusion, Your Excellency, Mr. President, the Vice President, and to you, honorable members, it is after all which the ambit of powers of Parliament to make its own rules. We have a right as this PAP to come up with our own rules. We therefore submit as the Southern Region that we were unanimous in agreeing with the amendments as per the report that was tabled here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and I salute all the members that are here present today, particularly the vice presidents. I am here on behalf of the West African Caucus to confirm that the report that was led by the chairperson of the Rules Committee is actually is factual, and we are in agreement. Honorable President, I think this has demonstrated that we are building an institution. And to build an institution, actually, I think it's important that we show maturity, we show professionalism, and above all, team spirit. And these amendments we have done today, it has shown just that. We are here from different countries. And I think it's important that we owe it to the African continent to ensure that we work together if we want to move in the near future. We don't have any option but to work together as a nation. And right now, as we speak, because of the fact that this is an all-inclusive consultation, let's remember, these rules came from the caucuses, not from the rules. The Rules Committee just arranged and managed the entire process. But every single rule, from Rule 1 all the way to Rule 94, came from the regional caucuses. And we are very grateful. We are grateful because of the togetherness, and we are also grateful for the support that is given by the president and the vice presidents to ensure that we're going to make history today. We're going to make history because we've attempted several times to change the rules, but it has not worked. Today, with the leadership we have, I think they've given us the right support in order for us to work together as one people, as one Africa. Now, we have also seen that the issue that divide us is limited, and we should concentrate on the areas that actually put us together as one continent and one nation. Now, we have seen that we are not talking about anything about Francophone. We are not talking about Anglophone. We are not talking about Arabophone or Lusophone. What we need to be talking about is Africa. That's one people, one voice. And I urge all of us today to ensure that we pass these amendments. I want to take this opportunity, finally, Honorable President, to thank the West African Caucus for the trust you have in me to ensure that I work with my colleagues to arrive at these conclusions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. Next vision. Come.
Mr. President, Vice President, and honorable members, first of all, I would like to confirm as well that the proposed amendments reflect a true picture of what we discussed and agreed upon at the caucus regional, with the chairs of caucus meetings. I would like to say that I really appreciate the involvement of members in this exercise. It is a participatory approach which provides a sense of belonging. It is our rules, and we are pleased for the opportunity to participate fully in the exercise. It is not perfect, of course, it reflects the views and of majority members of the Eastern Caucus. The provisions also reflects the new working environment, and also guiding tools for the transformation of our institution. The principles of equal opportunity and participation is well provided for in the proposed amendment, and it is in line with the Constitutive Act as well as the protocol on the treaty establishing the economic community relating to the Pan-African Parliament. The rules are more clear, and it will help members to work better in the future. I would like to say that I really appreciate the team spirit which was manifested throughout the process, which must be commended. From discussion at caucus level to our discussions in our meeting of chairs of caucuses, the spirit, a very good team spirit was seen. We move from several diverse views to almost 100% agreement. So we've done a very good job, a very good progress. And the only provisions where we slightly differ is the mandate of the committees. In terms of from the caucus, Eastern Caucus, the Committee on Gender, Family, Youth, Sport, and People with Disability is still, in our view, heavy, and we are proposing that that the Committee on Health also we add sports and youth to Committee of Health. That's the views of the Eastern Caucus, and we also agreed on 15 committees that it will give equal positions for committees of all regions, and it will also help to be able to deliver more effectively. Mr. President, I would like to thank the legal expert for the valuable support, not only in capturing the views of our caucus, but especially for bringing clarity to existing rules and the provisions in the different protocols. And I would like to thank the Bureau under your leadership, Mr. President, for facilitating this important exercise. And finally, I wish to thank the Committee on Rules Privilege for all the hard work. And finally, I wish to thank all members of the Eastern Caucus for the working spirit in which we shared and discussed our views. I thank you.
Thank you, Eastern Caucus. Next.
Bonjour, Monsieur le Président.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, dear colleagues. Concerning the work which has been done by the North African Caucus, we share the work into two parts. There was one part which was to do with methodology, a sort of preamble. When we discussed, there was a conceptual sort of clearing of ideas, the philosophy of rules of procedure, what are rules of procedure. We discussed that. because rules of procedure, as we've already said, is a mechanism which is dynamic. It is a mechanism which is live. So we needed, before anything, discuss the principles which guide the actions to arrive at a consensus. The second part which we discussed was proposals. We made suggestions where there were insufficiencies, where there might have been contradictions, where we might have forgotten something. So we went article by article, and the debate was extremely rich between us. Very remarkable suggestions were made, and we arrived at a consensus within our caucus. The second work that we did, or at least our contribution, was at the meeting of all the chairs of the caucuses and then the meeting that we had with the president. And I think that meeting, we had a huge rhythm of work. Sometimes we were asked to come for 10 minutes, and then we stayed for 3 hours, but it was extremely enriching. It had to be done, and it was done. So we arrived at a consensus between all our caucuses. And the last consensus was what we heard this morning. So I'm not going to come back in terms of what has been said by our colleagues. We just say, let us say that we agree. We agree on all the work that has been done. We agree with the results. We agree with the rules of procedure that have been decided. And here we are, Mr. President. We are in total agreement.
Thank you. North Africa, thank you. Central Africa.
Honorable President,
Honorable President, Honorable Vice Presidents, I would like, first of all, to thank you for your availability during this exercise, which we have finished today. I would like to also thank all the clerks who have been with us. And I would like specifically to thank each chair of each caucus. And here, the Honorable Terence Mondem from West Africa, Honorable Azaidine Abdelmajid from North Africa, from the North African Caucus, Honorable Pamela Majadina from Southern Africa, and Honorable Al-Hajimbo from West Africa. Because we have worked very well, we've collaborated. It has allowed us to arrive at a consensus. I would sincerely like to thank the members of my regional caucus, that is Central Africa, for their presence every time we had a meeting of our caucus, and also for their sense of responsibility, because that is what has allowed us to arrive at a consensus. Because, of course, there were differences, but because we are working on behalf of Africa and because we are talking about one voice, one single voice. I would also like to thank although it has been said by the other chairs which have spoken before me, but I would also like to thank our experts which have led us and which have helped us with the drafting of the documents on the rules of procedure, which you now have at your disposal. I think everybody has received the document. What can we say? We presented our report here. We left to work in our respective caucuses and with all the different members. We agreed, and I would like to assure you that we agreed as we agreed on a basis of what is foreseen in all the protocols which are being enforced right now, and also in terms of our rules and procedure. We did not work beyond or outside anything which the fundamental texts, which our basic texts say. And I also would like to say that there are still some points, there are still certain aspects in terms of the committees. We did agree in general. We had documents that we looked at. What now remains is the composition, the restructuring, the reconfiguration of the committees. And there we did agree that we're going to work together, and also we're going to work towards having standing committees, which would be 15. And I would also like to say yes, that the Central African Caucus is in agreement with the reports which our chair has presented here. And I think that if there is anything else, I mean, we agreed during the meeting this morning that we were going to agree. But the fundamental, the most important points, we are absolutely in agreement that there is no problem. We accept this report. And I am saying that in the name of the Central African Caucus, and I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Central Caucus. We are guided. The caucuses have agreed. And I'm saying, if you came late this session and you found that your caucus has met already 3-4 times, respect those who are present. You can't come late and start turning the wheel backwards. So, and you know what? Someone who's very honest is nodding his head. One of the most honest persons in this chamber is saying, yes, President, you are saying you are right. Because he only arrived, I think, on Sunday when the caucuses had met and finished. And that's my brother, Honorable Mikaya, is supporting, although he came late, which is a very good spirit, I can see. That's a very good spirit. Yes, Honorable Mikaya came late, but he's saying this is good. So I agree. Now, the caucus have spoken. And there are people who have registered to speak. And they belong to those same caucuses. Let's agree, how do we handle this one? Honorable Muntaka. And the Honorable South Africa, yes, Honorable Muntaka first.
Thank you, Mr. President. Having heard from our regional caucuses who have represented us, have given us opportunity in our own caucuses to go through all the items and have agreed with the rules as read, I would want to beg to move the motion that these amended rules be adopted as the true reflection of all the amendments that all of us sitting in this chamber have agreed to. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Let's do this. Let me ask the chair of rules to, in view of what Honorable Muntaka has said, to then formally give the proposal.
President.
Oh,
before that.
Before that, okay.
With respect.
Honorable Dr. Matore Mochek.
In seconding Honorable Mutaka, I want to say that history has been made today because the manner in which this process was managed confirmed the African approach of consensual rather than advisory politics. And I want to propose that in future, We must move away from the Western approach of saying we put everything to vote and we engage until we reach consensus as we did today. And congratulations, Honorable President, for having guided us in that direction, and the chairs of the caucuses for ensuring, the chairs of the caucuses ensured that their members participate and that the standing committees as well take their cue from the caucuses. That is African participatory democracy. We must internalize it and take it into the future. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Chair, before you come, I see two hands because I have to Honorable Chair of the Women's Caucus.
شكرا السيد الرئيس لإعطائي الفرصة. على ما أعتقد إنه الإخوة رؤساء المجموعة.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for giving us this opportunity. I think the chairs of all the caucuses have explained how the deliberations were done and how the consultations were undertaken. Since we've arrived at PAP, we have participated in various meetings dealing with the rules of procedure. We've all participated in such meetings, and I think that the deliberations and the conclusions, in fact, support all the observations made and all the propositions which have been formulated by the majority of the members of parliament and the members of this August Assembly. I think it was very well explained by the chairs of the caucuses during their interventions, and that is why I would like to make a call here to adopt the rules and procedure which reflects, in fact, the majority of our opinions. Thank you.
The Women's Caucus in this parliament. And we are now proud of women in this parliament. We need to call out before it will come back. The issue of proposing and seconding will follow after the chair of the rules has presented. But my brother, Honorable Domai, is raising his hand.
I thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. President, for the chance. I have two burning issues with respect to my boss, Muntaka. One, South Africa is the host of this house. When applying for visa.
Oh, sorry.
When applying
okay. Sorry, order, Honorable Domai, take your seat. Take your seat. I believe you have a very legitimate concern of visas. And I can say, you are not the only one. It is an issue that we are seized with even as leadership. But if you want a response on how much progress we've made, we held a meeting with the South African authorities about 4 days ago for more than 2 hours, because we have cases, similar cases. So can I ask you to hold on to that issue? And I believe you approach the chair. I will brief you where we are. If it need to come into the chamber, it will come appropriately. But can we have order? One weakness of this parliament since 18 years now is disorderliness and lack of respect for processes and procedures. And I think we will emphasize and make sure that everybody respects the way we are moving. So, Honorable Domai, and for the whole of last week, I have seen a very progressive mind. And you think ahead of others. You think ahead of others, I can see. Can you just hold on to that issue? And we'll come back to it. Please, I see more hands. I wanted to give the chair, but then I see you want to make a contribution. Sorry, I can't see proper from here. That's Mauritius?
That's Mauritius.
Mauritius, okay, the youth. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning to all the honorable members. I would like to congratulate all the different caucuses for bringing unanimity in bringing such important changements to the rules. I have one question and one request to the President. Can you just confirm and check with the clerk that we have the quorum so that we can avoid further contention? And I lend my voice together with my colleague from Mauritius to say that we fully support the amendments. Thank you.
Thank you. I see a hand over there.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Chair of Caucus, for the presentation.
Point of order. The rules state that when you are debating, you'll be standing.
Okay, but I'm very told I will not reach there. At least I have to lift it up, or what do I do? Do you hear me like this? Oh, okay. Okay, thank you very much, Chair, and I am very happy to hear from our caucuses for the presentation that they did. My name is Day Tutu Weng from South Sudan. I'm part of Eastern Caucus, and also I'm in the Rule Committee. But I have concern from my caucus. I raised that, and I thought it should be brought here and discussed. Also, when we met as a Rule Committee, I insist to clarify that particular rules, Rule 7. So I think Rule 7, we need to elaborate it instead of moving.
Point of order, Honorable President.
Point of order. Point of order. Who's point of order? Order rules. Ole Magongo. Ole Magongo. Point of order. Yeah, switch off your mic. Yeah, that one is working.
Thank you, Mr. President. The member that is talking now is in the Rules Committee, 1. 2, doesn't read. Let me invite him to read the report. If he doesn't have the report in front of him, let him go and get the report there and read properly. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. President.
Sorry, another point of order?
Yes, Mr. President.
Okay,
From
okay.
here.
I see one here and I'll come over there. I see here and then I'll come over there. Yes.
I'm rising in a point of order, Honorable President. Honorable President, there was a motion that was seconded by this House that let the regional chairpersons represent their caucuses and table their reports in support or disapproving. All 5 regions are in support of the report, and we're not expecting that, Honorable President, you'll open the floor for members to come and comment. Otherwise, we're going back to square one. Why did we make our inputs as chairs? Because we're representing all 5 caucuses. Thank you.
Order here. Point of order.
Thank you. Now, what order means?
Point of order.
What order? Who is that?
I was on the
Sorry,
floor,
that is who?
This is the.
Sorry, Domai. Honorable Domai, take your seat. You have not been given the floor. There is someone behind there. I just.
Yes, Mr. President, this is Oseusu from Ghana. The first person who was on point of order used a very offensive word, referring to the other member who raised the objection as does not read. I think it is most offensive. You must so rule and call upon him.
Okay, we withdraw, Honorable Magongo.
I withdraw, Chair.
Thank you. I think the consensus is that we invite the chair of the Rules Committee. Allow the chair of the Rules Committee to present.
Thank you, Honorable President. I'm rising for a second time to move a motion on the amendment of the Rules of Procedure of the Pan-African Parliament. Considering the provision of Article 17 of the Constitutive Act of the African Union established the Pan-African Parliament that states that the composition, powers, functions, and the organization of the Pan-African Parliament shall be defined in the protocol relating thereto, having regard to Article 11.8 of the protocol of the treaty established the African Economic Community relating to the Pan-African Parliament, which empowers Parliament to develop and adopt its own rules of procedure. Noting further the challenges encountered by the Pan-African Parliament and its organs over the last 18 years of the implementation of the existing rules of procedure and the gaps, areas of improvement identified in the report of the Committee of the Rules, Privileges and Discipline, and considering by all regional caucuses. Recall the resolution 18 May 2017, by which the Pan-African Parliament resolved that the rules of procedure of the PAP being amended in accordance with Rule 93 to incorporate the principle of rotation of the presidency of the Pan-African Parliament. Recall further the decision of the 1st July 2017, the Executive Council of the Pan-African Parliament as the Pan-African Parliament to apply the African Union rules and values, including the principle of the geographical rotation amongst the 5 regions of the African in the election of the members of the Bureau. Convinced of the necessity of truly update and review the rules of procedure in order to ensure that they are fully reflective of the evaluation and the evaluating the need of the Pan-African Parliament. Noting the consultative nature of the process of amending the rules of the procedure of the Pan-African Parliament, that involve consultative workshops by committees and rules, privileges, and discipline held on the 5th to the 6th of September 2022. Various meetings of the regional caucuses to consider submissions on the identified gaps, a plenary resolution on the same. Convinced further of the need of integrate the various decisions of the Executive Council and the resolution of Parliament, as well as prevailing the comparable parliamentary best practices. I acknowledge the need to institutionalize relevant plenary resolution and decision of the African Union policy organs, noting also the need to provide the regulations of visual sittings of Parliament and its various organs, affirming that the rules of procedure constitute a living document that must constantly evolve to reflect ever-changing policy environment. Appreciating the guide and the contribution from the members of Parliament, African Union of Legal Counsel, the Secretariat of the Pan-African Parliament, and the various legal experts from member states in identifying the gaps and the existing rules of procedure. Recalling Assembly decision of February 2020, they directed the Office of the Legal Counsel to examine and align the legal instruments and the rules of procedure of the AU organs to request the OLC to review the rules of procedure of the Pan-African Parliament and report back to the Executive Council. I acknowledge the Rule 4.1F of the Rules of Procedure, which empowers Parliament to adopt the rules of procedure in conformity with Article 11.2 and 8 of the Protocol. Now, I hereby urge the Parliament to, 1, amend these rules of procedure in accordance with Rule 93 and laid on the table this on the second, this is the second today, third, on the 3rd of November 2022. Two, I specify that the amended rules of procedure shall enter into immediately upon the adoption of the plenary. I move, Honorable President.
Wait. Honorable Muntaka.
President, can I?
Oh, sorry.
You cut me and I did not conclude my...
Okay, there's been a presentation by the Chair of Rules.
Yes.
Can we complete that part? Then we also come to you.
Why don't
we
I
can't
finish
introduce another item in the middle of another item. Right, yes, just moved. Then we come back to you.
Are you sure?
Yes. Honorable Muntaka.
What? We are not coming to South Africa to be dictators. Eh? For real, we are not coming to South Africa to be dictated.
Okay, South Sudan, we hear you. Can you proceed, Honorable Muntaka?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise to second the motion and resolution ably moved by the Chair of the Rules Committee. And in doing so, Mr. President, I just want to make this short comment. I want to plead with my colleagues in this chamber to know that as Africans with different backgrounds, different upbringing, different educational level, probably different faiths, but believing in one Africa, it is impossible for us to have a document such as our rules that are having so many articles and to be able to have 100% agreement. It is not possible. What we try to do is that whilst we try to build consensus around the rules, it is our hope, it gives us life to be able to move on, and as we implement it, if there are other challenges, we take steps to further amend. So I want to plead with all my colleagues who may not be 100% happy, may have one or two reservations, that for the spirit of the collective, especially having worked through our regional caucuses, made inputs, and gave mandate to the regional caucuses leaders to go and negotiate and take middle grounds. Having taken this middle ground, any attempt by any of us to reintroduce what in their caucus was a burning issue now will mean almost every other caucus will start bringing their little differences and to draw us back. I want to plead that where we have reached, let's make progress without having to raise too many observations. And lastly, Mr. President, let me say...
Sorry, let him finish.
Mr. President, let me say...
Honorable Domai,
he's opening the debate.
We'll give you the floor.
I am moving...
Honorable Domai, we'll give you the floor.
I'm seconding a motion and making a comment. And lastly, Mr. President, let me say, rules... Yes, rules everywhere in our parliament are such that when you get to a place where you build consensus, unless there is an objection to head count, you assume that you have the numbers.
President.
Honorable Domai.
Mr. President.
No, you are being disruptive to this parliament. We give you the right.
Is opening the debate.
No problem. A mover of a motion in any parliament is allowed to debate to justify why they are moving in any parliament. You don't just say I move. You see, a mover is allowed to motivate the motion.
So, Mr. President, in conclusion, to say that I second the motion and I urge all of us to unreservedly support this resolution.
You
Thank you, Mr.
seconding
President.
right. Another seconder we give to Benin.
Oui, merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Honorable President. I support the motion and the report presented by the Rules Committee for the simple reason that unanimously the General Assembly agreed that the chairpersons of each caucus be the spokesperson for the said caucus. So if they've spoken and the President of the Parliament invites the chair of the committee to present the report and we continue to amend it, how is that possible? Because we'll be moving backward. It is for that reason that I would like to ask the August Assembly to adopt the report, because we know that both the Bible and the Quran are called into question here and there by men and women. Thank you, Honorable President.
Motion is adopted.
Yes.
For today's business, we have our great women's conference starting at 2. So we adjourn to 2 o'clock, and all men, please come and support women's conference this afternoon, today, and tomorrow. We adjourn to 2 o'clock today. Thank you.
Thank you. It's already adjourned. No, this is the South African Parliament. This is not. No. This is South African Parliament. This is not This is South African Parliament. This is not African.